solidifying the defensive staff and Fangio's official presser. What is up, Fin fans? Yes, we are officially listening to Vic Fangio. He did his presser today at 11 o'clock. Super busy. Me taking care of my child, so I didn't do it instantly, but I'm going to react to it. We're going to listen to what he had to say. I think I heard maybe one thing he said, and I was very excited for that. But we'll listen to what he had to say and all that good stuff. But before we jump into that, the Miami Dolphins and Vic Fangio already started to solidify that coaching staff, because we did release a few people, coaches on that defensive staff, and the Dolphins have brought in Chargers defensive coordinator Ronaldo Hill is leaving LA to reunite with Miami defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. This is what Adam Schefter said, and become the defensive pass game coordinator per source. Hill was Fangio's top target, and out of respect to his former boss, Chargers head coach Brandon Staley allowed his defensive coordinator to leave LA for Miami. So Ronaldo Hill was not fired. Ronaldo Hill was the defensive coordinator for the Chargers, right? Now everyone's going to say, well, the Chargers defense sucked. We'll get to that. He was the defensive coordinator for the Chargers. And then Vic Fangio was like, hey, listen, I'm now the defensive coordinator for Miami, and we'll get to his little history, Ronaldo Hill. I want you to come be my pass game coordinator because Sam Madison is the D-backs coach. And he's like, all right. And Brandon Staley was like, yeah, go do what you want to do. So he took a demotion to go be with Vic Fangio. Ronaldo Hill's history, right? He was a Wyoming grad student. He was a Wyoming cornerback. And in Pittsburgh, he was a defensive backs coach. It wasn't until his first NFL career coaching job was with the Miami Dolphins in 2018 as their assistant defensive back coach. Kind of what he's going to do now. He was with Denver from 2019 to 2020 as the defensive back coach with Vic Fangio. He was with the Chargers these past 2 years, 2021, 2022, as their defensive coordinator. And now, again, he is our pass game coordinator / defensive back coach. But again, Sam Madison, I'm hearing, is sticking. I think it's very interesting that he kind of took a demotion to come be the defensive back coach and the pass game coordinator for Miami. I find that very, very interesting. But give you that update. Now we're going to jump into Vic Fangio's presser. It's about a 21-minute presser. I don't know if we're I'm going to show the whole thing. Maybe if there's stuff that's like, then maybe, Miami Dolphins have it on their site. You can go check it out on youtube.com/Miami Dolphins. Let's jump into this.
You were, first, welcome to Miami. You were a DC who was in, high demand. A lot of teams that were looking into, potentially bringing you in. What made Miami the right fit and the right opportunity for you after a year off?
Well, I think the Dolphins have a good thing going here. I like the Mike and his staff that he already has in place here. I think there's good components to the coaching staff led by Mike that made it intriguing to join that. I think there's a good nucleus of players here and the allure of South Florida.
What do you think are some of the most important ways to maximize the player's talent?
Well, I've always believed you just try and improve every player as an individual. And then hopefully you do that well enough to where their position group improves. And if their position group improves, then the defense has improved. So you really do it from the ground up. And there's a lot of good young players here that I think have room to grow. And hopefully myself and the staff will get that done.
What's your connection with Mike? When did you guys meet and develop a relationship where you'd be central?
Really didn't have much of a relationship with Mike. Obviously we have some mutual friends. But as far as Mike and I having a relationship worth mentioning prior to this, would be misleading. Obviously I knew of him, he knew of me. We've had 2-3 minute casual conversations, maybe at a combine or somewhere else. but no major connection, relationship prior to this.
That's interesting because it was made to be that they had some type of relationship because the rumors out there, again, these are sources and rumors, that if Mike McDaniel wasn't, okay, we want to stick with Josh Boyer, it's up to you, but we want to stick with Josh Boyer last year. He wanted Vic Fangio last year. And the rumors were, again, sources, that they had some type of relationship. So I think it's funny that he decides to come to Miami. Barely knows Mike. Obviously, he probably likes what Mike has to say. But he did talk about the nucleus of players, and we have a lot. Bradley Chubb, he's familiar with. Jalen Phillips, who one of the top PFF pass rushers. Javon Holland, Christian Wilkins, Sealer. Then we got Tyndall coming in there. Kader Kohu is, the up and coming. Trill Williams coming back from injury. Brandon Jones. A lot of core nucleus that you can build off of on that defense.
Nick, having said that, from the little that you've spoken to him now.
What's that?
Having said that, from the little that you've been with him now, what's your first impressions of a guy like that?
Yeah, well, it's been very little because I got here last Tuesday and Mike was on vacation. So today's the first day we're in here together. Now, we did some Zoom interviews together from where he was last week. But, everything I thought, he's energetic, genuine, obviously got a good football mind, puts good offensive football out there, and hopefully we can complement that.
It was funny. Everyone's freaking out, right? Super Bowl Sunday, Monday, not hearing anything. Tuesday, not hearing anything. It's been 2 days. Why is it blah, blah? He was in the building on Tuesday. Again, with social media and the way things work with Twitter and everything, you get too much. And you get these sources and you get these inside information that you don't know if that's true or not. So everyone was sitting back freaking out. Where is he? Why isn't he here? Oh, people said the next day. And I think he officially signed and they made the official announcement like Thursday. He was in the building Tuesday. People need to take a breath.
I know that this past season you weren't in the NFL for most of the year anyway, but you did spend quite a bit of time studying games. In the time that you were studying games, what did you take away from what you saw of the Dolphins defense? What stood out to you?
Well, I didn't study the Dolphins defense per se that much.
Why would he? Right? You could study the Dolphin defense in the aspect of players that you're going to inherit, but why would he study the Dolphins defense? It's gonna probably look nothing like it did last year. There's no point in studying it, especially. He probably looked at it and he's like, why do you keep dropping Jalen Phillips back into coverage? He should be straight rushing on third downs. Why are you doing that? Why are you shifting? Why are you doing? He's probably was doing a lot of that. And he's probably like, I'm not going to watch this.
Basically what I did with all my time, I kind of treated it like a college professor on a sabbatical and was watching a lot of NFL tape more from a situational standpoint rather than studying a team per se. So I never actually studied the Dolphins in its entirety. Now, obviously, their games would come across these situational studies that I was doing, and I think there's some good young talent there. Obviously, just from 2 years ago in the draft with Phillips and Holland, and those are two really good players that I really liked in the draft. Bradley Chubb is here, who obviously I know about. And several other guys, Christian Wilkins is here, who another guy I liked in the draft, who, Christian's greatest honor is the Bill Campbell Award Trophy, which is the academic Heisman. And Bill Campbell was a good friend of mine. So he'll always, when I see him, I always think of that. That's cool. But there's a good nucleus of players here. For me to give you a great answer schematically, I'd be stretching it.
You've got a ton of defensive coordinator experience. You now go into this tenure with previous head coaching experience. How will that transform who you are in this stint as a DC?
My experience as the head coach won't change it too much because I still ran the defense when I was in Denver. So I just continued on that path. Obviously, I had more on my plate that I was responsible for. But I've done this job enough now that I don't see it being a major factor.
Vic, how important was it to get Ronaldo to come from LA, and
This is
how did you
big.
convince him to leave a DC job to work under you?
What was the first part of the question?
I guess just how important.
Yeah,
was
it's
it for you?
important. First and foremost, Ronaldo's a good coach. Really a talented coach that's got a bright future in the NFL. He worked with us for 2 years in Denver, so his familiarity with me and the system and what we do was important to me. But regardless of that, just his ability to be a great coach is what attracted me to him.
How did you convince him to leave?
I'll let him answer that for you at some point.
How do you like to go about
Oh, that's what I was just saying. I'm like, he was the defensive coordinator, and he didn't get fired. There was no rumbles of him being released, but he decides, I'm going to go to, hey, Stanley, I'm going to go to Miami. If that's all right with you, I'm going to be there. I'm going to take a demotion to go to Miami to play under Vic Fangio again. And I think the reason why he brought him over is, like he said, he knows the scheme. A lot of these coaches that are still there, like our D-line coach and even Sam Madison stuff, don't know the scheme. So he can help. He could definitely help.
which players should play and which players should play a lot, and maybe some aren't going to play a lot? How do you go about that?
Well, that's a process that's, starts in training camp.
They're asking him
I could
questions.
say OTAs, but in OTAs we're going to be teaching everything.
He hasn't even met half the players.
It's a process that really the players are in charge of. Now, there's some that you'd like to play every play. Sometimes that's not possible from a exertion standpoint. But a lot of the great players that I've been around, they never leave the field very often. I know the heat here is a different element, an animal to deal with. But, there'll be plenty of packages available for guys to get playing time. But who plays and how much is really up to the players.
Mm-hmm.
Victor, your time off, did you come up with anything new that you would like to try out there on the field?
Yeah, there's a few things that
The way I like Vic Fangio so far because Vic Fangio has that mentality of like, I'm going to be professional up here. I'm going to answer your questions, but I'm answering questions I already answered. Because if you watch the Travis Wingfield interview, I think I put that out Friday, he literally said he was on sabbatical somewhat and he was watching film and he has a bunch of different coverages and schemes that he wants to try out. And then they ask him, do you have any coverages and schemes you'd like to try out? And his answer is like, yeah. Probably what he wanted to say was, yeah, man, I already said this about last week. You do you not watch what I'm doing?
that I came up with that I'm anxious to try. We'll try them in OTAs at some point and in training camp and, as a good fit for the other things we do. But what's going to be most important is tailoring what we do
I was about to
to
say
our
that.
players
Who fits
and
where?
to the opponent that we're playing for that week. So, there may be things that we did at previous stops that we won't do much here because it doesn't fit our players, and vice versa. We might do something a lot that we didn't do other places because it's a better fit for our players. So, and sometimes it's a better, you might think it would be great to do something because it fits a certain player really good, but you really have to think about how it fits all 11 and what's the best way to stop somebody from scoring too many points.
Vic, your time with him in Denver, what are your thoughts on Bradley Chubb, and what's the key to unlocking the best of him here in Miami?
Well, the 3 years, Bradley and I talked about this the other day when he was in here. The 3 years I was with him in Denver, he was the victim of some injuries. I believe he got hurt in the fourth game the first year I was there and was out for the season. Came back the second year. And it took him about 4 or 5 games to get into a groove coming off the injury, and then he had a good season that year.
7.5 sacks.
And then he really basically missed, it doesn't say it statistically, but he missed most of my last year there because he had an ankle injury that kept him out. And when he came back, he wasn't himself, still recovering from he had 2 ankle injuries. So I'm anxious to get him rolling, keep him healthy, and see the Bradley Chubb that we all know he's capable of being.
Down up front.
Based on what you a couple of years ago. What potential do those two have as a pass rushing duo here?
They have great potential.
Yeah.
But, potential, we got to see it. Talking about it is easy. Projecting it is easy, but we got to see it. And I'm confident knowing those two guys' work ethic that they'll do everything they can to put a good product out there on the field.
That's what I'm interested to see.
They both have the tools, both have the makeup to be really good players on the edges for us.
How do you describe your defensive philosophy? We've heard a lot in the last couple of weeks about things you do, but how do you have any way to describe
Not a buzzword, if that's what you're looking for. We're in charge of not letting the other team score.
Pretty much.
And we will do anything and everything to do that. I've been places in the past where we pressured a lot. I've been places where we didn't pressure very much. You got to fit the scheme to the players that you have while also factoring in the opponents that you're playing. So hopefully we'll be a team that will keep the points down, make it hard for teams to score a lot of points, and put our offense in position to score points for us. So, I'm not a buzzword guy as far as that goes, other than we want to play good defense. And what's good defense? Keep them out of the end zone.
Going off of that.
Yeah, and I like that he keeps instilling and he keeps saying that it's the players. The players are going to dictate things. Like the question before asking who's going to play where and how much certain people are going to play. We haven't even hit free agency yet. Like, how the flip is he going to know that? Like, that's a question that's like, oh, okay, how are you going to take care of the Patriots when you play them next week? Like, what's your game plan? This is like such a far in advance question. But I love that he keeps saying he's going to cater it to them. Because I was thinking while I was listening to him, Xavier Howard, he might have a strength in zone, but not be good in man, especially with the nagging injuries he's had, right? Back in the day, he was good in man. He used to bait you, let the receiver go, and you as a quarterback, you thought, oh, this guy just burnt X, and then also X catches up, gets the interception. I don't know if that's still his thing, still his niche. So Vic might be like, all right, well, we can't put him in this, so we need a scheme to fit that, but also we can't hurt the other, 10. It's going to be very interesting to say.
Your general philosophy when it comes to blitzing specifically?
As needed and when I want to. Versus having to.
I love that.
If you have to, that's not a great feeling. You want to do it when you want to on your terms.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I can't tell you what that means from a percentage standpoint.
Love that. Because his last year being a defensive coordinator, I think it was 2018 with the Chicago Bears, he had the number one defense. I think he was 25th in the NFL in blitzing. He had barely blitzed. I love that he said that when I want to, because if you do it when it's needed, aka last year with the Dolphins, you got burnt. They kept dumping it off to the running back. They'd have the tight end block and go out, but naked open because you have to blitz at that point. Versus, like he said, when I want to, because you have to do. If you have to do it when you have to, ain't gonna work.
Mike mentioned you've been doing this longer than he's been alive. You see these young guys, young head coaches, the offensive philosophy is changing. How do you mix with that? And do you think he'll benefit from having a guy who's been around,
100%,
like you, has seen it all?
Yeah, the game's
100%.
evolving. Since I got in the league, the evolution of the game has just continued. And, I think we saw it firsthand in the Super Bowl. I guess it was 8 days ago. Two great quarterbacks, two great offenses, and they had their way with both defenses in that game. There was I believe 17 possessions in that game, and I think 14 of them resulted in scores. And we've got to find a way to slow that down. And the only way you do that is to evolve your philosophy, what you're teaching, what you're playing, to fit stopping what they're doing now, to line up and play what you did 10, 15 years ago although you're still doing some of that, you have to adapt it to today's NFL game. And, you know, when it was years ago, you know, every team had a fullback. Now hardly any teams have a fullback. And the fullback's been replaced by a third wide receiver or a second tight end who's like a third wide receiver. That in and of itself has changed the game. But teams are still running the ball. You know, everybody likes to say it's a pass-happy league, but
Not necessarily.
percentage-wise, from 40 years ago to now, the runs have decreased only about 4%. And Chris Greer told me, because he's on the competition committee, they had a graphic last week in a meeting. This is the most runs in the NFL this past year in the last 25 years.
Wow.
So you still have to be able to stop the run and play physical.
Miami Dolphins were top 5 in the NFL in stopping the run. A lot of that had to do with the big boys up the middle and Christian Wilkins. But that's surprising. I knew that they were still running the ball because you still had, Josh Jacobs, you still had Derrick Henry, you still had these guys breaking 1,000 yards rushing. But I didn't know it was that much. It was very interesting. And I like that he knows these statistics. He has prepared.
Mentioned the sabbatical that you took. Can you give us a little bit more details of maybe what that looked like week to week for you? Watching those situational drills?
Watch him say no.
Well, I set up shop. I lived in Destin, Florida, up on the Panhandle, and
so he was already in Florida. Again, people are freaking out over nothing.
I had a computer that I was able to VPN into, and it was just like if I was in an office, an NFL office. I had exposure to everything that any NFL coach had at that time.
Type of VPN too.
And wherever I went, I would tune in and do my, not every day, but most every day, spend a few hours watching tape and doing these different types of studies like third down, red zone, formational studies, against offensive personnel. And so I did that a lot up there. I traveled out of there. I'd go back east and fly into Philadelphia and either drive 2 hours north and see my mother or 2 hours south and see my kids. I've spent some time in San Francisco, but no matter where I was doing that. Just doing it on a kitchen table. Sometimes I went into a library and did it. But I just did that all year. Played some golf too. So it was an interesting year. One that I would recommend for anybody to do at some point. But in this business, you can't do it too often.
You get forgotten.
The desire to get back in. Some may have just enjoyed life. You want to get back into coaching. Why?
Yeah, because that's who I am. That's what I do. That's what I like to do. I still have a lot of coaching left in me. And I don't, it's not like I'm thinking about retirement or anything. Somebody asks, how much longer are you going to do this? I don't know. It might be 10 years if they'll have me here for 10 years. It's just who I am, what I do, what I enjoy doing. Like the competition. I like teaching players. I like to see players improve as individuals. And putting something together is challenging and fulfilling.
Vic, you mentioned teaching players. One guy you mentioned earlier was Javon Holland. I know you've had a lot of success with safeties. What do you think you can maybe teach him to elevate his game?
Well, I haven't studied him enough since he's got in the NFL as far as what can I teach him, but I do know I really liked him the year he came out in the draft. I like his physical ability, his combination of size, speed, quickness. He's got good instincts. I think he's smart from a football standpoint. And you're right, we've had some good luck with safeties over the years in the last few stops. And I'm hopeful and confident that he can be one of the top safeties in the league.
Oh, yeah.
Vic, you mentioned fitting your scheme to the players. With your relationship with Chris Greer, how much input will you have on bringing in certain players with all the relationships you have that you think will fit here?
Well, we haven't sat down and said how much I will, but you can rest assured if there's somebody I feel strong about, I'll be in and out of his office pestering him pretty strongly.
How close is this deal?
Ooh, I like that. Ooh, I like that, Vic. I like that he said that. If there's somebody he likes enough, he will be pestering him in and out of his office. Ooh, I have a lot to say, but I want to finish this and then I'll go on. I think we have about 3 minutes, give or take.
Super Bowl caliber.
Oh, I don't know. Can we get one practice on the field?
Thank you.
Jesus Christ.
You're asking him such ridiculous questions.
This week, you've been here a week, about a week.
Yeah.
With your order of business this week.
Well, a lot of it's been spent on filling up the staff, you know, and everything that's involved with that, you know, which is a multitude of phone calls, Zoom interviews, talking to a lot of people. Did one day of a little house hunting, and up to this moment, I'm looking at one that's way too more than I wanted to spend. Jeez. But it's been, you know, I'll tell you what it is too. That last week, it's one of those where you're super, super busy. But if you came in my office and, hey, show me what you got done today, I really couldn't show you much. You know, because you're doing all the busy work, not handwriting busy work, but the leg work to fulfill your staff.
So if you've had conversations with them, what are your early impressions of Austin Clark, Anthony Campanelli, and Sam Madison?
Great. You know, they were on vacation last week, although I did spend some time with Austin and Anthony. We watched some tape together, met Sam for a little bit. But by all reports and everything.
So real quick, if you don't know, Austin Clark, defensive line coach, Anthony, linebackers coach, and obviously you know Sam Madison is the corners coach.
I know they're great coaches, and that's why Mike kept them on. And I'm looking forward to working with them.
You mentioned, obviously you spent time, it's been reported, with Philadelphia during the Super Bowl period. What did you learn, or what did you maybe help in that period that you think can provide insight with?
I wasn't there often. You know, like I had said earlier, I would fly into Philadelphia and either end up going north a little bit or south a little bit to see family. And, you know, I'd stop in and see them because Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni are friends of mine, and I'd spend some time there. But, you know, and then when they got in the playoffs and I helped them prepare for the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, but I was helping the offense, not the defense. You know, I was giving them a defensive perspective for the offensive coaches, and it was a great experience. They got a great organization. You know, Jeffrey Lurie's a great owner. Howie does a great job as the GM. Nick Sirianni's a great coach, and they really have a great staff up there. And what little I was around them, I enjoyed it.
So can people stop saying, oh, the Eagles defense was so bad in the playoffs, or the Eagles defense was so bad in the Super Bowl? Why would you want him as your defensive coordinator? He just answered your question.
Background with the Dolphins at all before this?
No. Other than some of you are old enough to remember when the Dolphins was in the AFC East when it was a 5-team division.
Central.
And I was with the Colts a couple years. Dan Marino and I talked about one of those games just last week. You know, obviously when you think about the Dolphins, you think about Don Shula, Dan Marino, the heyday in the 70s, the 17-0 season. I think the Dolphins are one of those franchises that the NFL is a better league when the Dolphins are relevant and in the hunt, and hopefully we can get it back to that.
And that's how you end a press conference. Yeah, 100%. I'm very happy with bringing in Vic Fangio. I'm very happy with everything he said, to his mentality. Some of the questions were a little, even he was like, I don't know, man, let me work with them first before I answer these questions. But it makes me happy. It makes me happy, you know, the things he said, you know, especially the whole Chris Greer. If I see somebody that I want, I'm going to go and knock on Chris Greer's door. He's coming in with a mentality. He's coming in with a knowledge. He's coming in with experience right, that he's going to be able to instill not only on the defense, but on Mike McDaniel on the offense. You also have to realize that Tua Tagovailoa is going to be facing this defense in training camp, facing this defense in OTAs and mini camp and all that stuff. And it's going to make him better at reading and learning and all this stuff with the defenses, because Vic Fangio's defense was the first defense he faced that he got benched. So this is just going to make him better. And also, you know, it's going to make our offense better. And I'm very, very excited. But yeah, that's, you know, he's officially here now. Again, officially here now. He's going to start adding pieces, doing his thing like a chicken wing. I got a ton of videos planned for this week. We're getting closer and closer to 40K. I think we're at about 200 to 40K. When that happens, I'll do a live stream and then I'll do a giveaway. Like I said, I got 2 things going on with the giveaway. Film breakdown. I'm going to do best and worst of Tua. I did it last year. I'm going to do it again. Also, I'm going to do some reactions to some film breakdowns and some reaction videos. I think like Wednesday, or I'm going to pick a day. It's going to be reaction day and stuff like that. But other than that, I will see you guys in the next video. Like usual, stay classy. Offense out.